Great. So this is practice test for the Khan Academy exam. That's worth 50 points in your grade book. If you got a missing, please make sure go back in, and this should help you. So for the first problem, I'll just walk us through it. You write down what you feel is important. It says the function is given to us. Notice it's already factored, so that's great. And it has zeros at -5/3. That makes sense. That came from right here. -1, which came from right here, and +1/2. Cool. So I already did all the work for me. Their question is, what is the sign? And when they say the sign, they're talking positive, negative, of the function on the interval between. So this really means x values in between -5/3 and 1/2. So what we're going to do is just graph this like normal, and then to figure out the sign, if between those two numbers it's above the axis, we'll say the sign is positive. If it's below the axis, we'll say the sign is negative. So we're just going to graph this. So why don't we start with our x-intercepts, which we already found. They're at -5/3. So -5/3, is that like -0 point something, -1 point something, -2 point something? What is it approximately?
-1.6.
-1 point something, right? It's between -3/3 and -6/3. It's right over here, -1 and 2/3. So that's my -5/3. I'm going to label it. I also have an intercept at -1 right next to it, and an intercept at +1/2 right there. And as we've done in class, we're going to graph starting from the right side, positive or negative. We're going to use the sign in front. There's a positive in front, so we're going to go up. And now we're going to go to our 1/2. And at x equals 1/2, I'm looking at the factor's exponent is a 1. And notice actually all of the exponents are 1s, so we can kind of shortcut this. We know since we have odd exponents, we're going to cross. So I'm going to dip under. I'm going to hit here, I'm going to cross over. And I'm going to hit the next intercept and cross down. So we've graphed it. Now let's answer the question. Between -5/3 and 1/2, so I'm highlighting it. This is -5/3 all the way to 1/2. Is the graph always positive, always negative, or sometimes positive and negative? What's it look like? A, B, or C? So notice from here to here, it's positive. It's above the axis. Whereas between -1 and 1/2, it's negative because it's below the axis. So our answer is going to be C. Sometimes positive, sometimes negative. Okay, and that's all that means. Okay, any questions? Leslie, Anthony, Giselle, Ashley. You with me?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. So when you see this question, all they're asking you is what is the sign between those two numbers? Okay, next one. Let's call this number 2. Okay, a polynomial has zeros when x equals 0, x is -1/6, and x is -3. So those are the zeros. What could be the equation of P? Which one of these equations would give us those zeros above? Well, let's start with the most obvious one. If I have a 0 of x equals -3, what's the factor that it came from?
X plus 3.
X plus 3, so that's wrong, that's wrong. I'm going to cross those guys out. It got to be x plus 3. Let's look at x equals 0. If I have x equals 0, then the factor it would have come from would just be
X.
Yeah, it could just be x. Or it could be x squared, or it could be x cubed. It could actually be any power of x. It also could have any number in front, right? 2x squared would still give me a 0 of 0. But they all have, these guys are good to go, so there's nothing to eliminate there. Okay, let's move on to this guy. X equals -1/6. So this one's a little bit trickier. You can probably figure it out by looking. Which one do you think it would be, A or C? for x equals -1/6.
A.
A is the right answer. A is the right answer, but I'm going to prove it to you. Here's how we know. If I have 6x plus 1 and I set that equal to 0, we subtract the 1, we divide by 6, and I get -1/6. So that gives me the 0, the -1/6, and the -3. This guy, on the other hand, would just, if I set it equal to 0, I would multiply both sides by 6, and I just get x equals 0. I don't want a 0 at 0. I want a 0 at -1/6. So that's why we would narrow it down the way we did. Any questions? Let's move on to number 3. Thanks, Giselle. Number 3, here we go. All right, it says, so go ahead and copy this polynomial down. We're going to work on it together. And I want you to tell me where it is that you're getting stuck, if you are getting stuck, and if you're not, go ahead and call out the next step. So it says we want to find the zeros of the polynomial, and you're copying this down. I'll copy it as well. Okay, so to find the zeros, we'll set the whole function equal to 0. That's what we do to find our x-intercepts. And I need to now solve this function or this equation. What method might we use to begin? We know we have to factor. What method might we use to start factoring? What do you notice?
Group.
Say that again.
Grouping.
Grouping. How did you know, Giselle?
I don't know, miss.
Because we have, first of all, we can check, we should check, can we do greatest common factor? And I notice there's no x here, so I can't take that out. And there's no number here, so I can't take out a number. So GCF doesn't work. Magic X doesn't work. Why? You have to be able to think through this. Why does Magic X not work?
Nothing could give us 8 and 4.
Nothing. Well, even you wouldn't even need to check if a number works. Even if a number did work, we couldn't use Magic X. Why? Anybody?
Is it because of the x?
It's not because of the X. Okay, here's why. Magic X only works when we have, write this down in your notes somewhere because you don't want to forget it. Magic X only works for ax squared plus bx plus c. 1, 2, 3 terms. It only works for trinomials. How many terms do we have? 4 terms. And if you have 4 terms, you will use grouping. So that's how we figure out which one to use. If you have 4 terms, you're going to group. So let's group. Underline the first 2, and right now you're ignoring the last 2. We can factor out an x squared, which leaves us with 2x minus 1. The nice thing about grouping is you know the second parentheses. So now we're going to group these 2. Ignore the first half. You know that this will always match. What number should go in between? What number times 2x and times -1 would give me -8x plus 4? What's some magic number? What goes here that when I
4.
distribute 4, close, not quite. That's
-4.
-4. There we go. Next step. Do you guys know what to do next? When you have grouping, you're going to circle these guys and then copy down the one that's the same, cross it out, you're done. Then you bring down what's left over. So I have an x squared minus 4. We're not done yet. What else can we do? What factoring opportunity is staring at you right now?
You can
Difference of
root square.
squares. There you go. 2x minus 1 stays. And from this we have x minus 2x plus 2 equal to 0. So we actually have 3 x-intercepts. My first one is that x equals +1, flip the sign, and then divide by 2. At x equals +2, and at x equals -2. So all this question is testing is, do you know how to find a 0 by setting the function equal to 0? And then can you factor down to the answer. So 1/2 is my first zero, 2 is my next zero, and then -2 is my final x-intercept. It does not ask me to graph, so we're done. It just said plot the zeros. All right, I'm going to move on to number 4. So this time they're giving me a graph and they're asking me to identify which of these equations could match it. We've done stuff like this in class. Who wants to volunteer? What's one thing we should start with? So have a look at the graph. I can start us off. First thing I want to make sure is that the sign in front matches the end behavior on the right. This is going up on the right side, meaning that they should have a positive in front. So I'm checking. They all check out. They all have a positive in front. Not helpful. Okay, next, I'm going to use my zeros. So I'm going to draw dots at my x-intercepts and label them. This is x equals 2, and this is x equals 0. So if I have an intercept at x equals 2, then I know I have a factor of x minus 2, and I'll just put it right here. And if I have an intercept at x equals 0, my factor should be x, or some power of x. Let's check. Can we eliminate anything based on that? They still all look good. Who can tell me, given that we've checked the sign and we've checked the intercepts, what's our last thing that we can check? What needs to be true about our equation to match this graph?
The exponents.
The exponents, the exponent. So let's look. At x equals 2, I'm crossing across the axis. So the exponent should be what? Odd or even?
Odd.
Odd is where we're going to cross. And remember, evens are where we bounce off. So it's going to be a to the power of 1 or to the power of 3. But this one definitely can't work. And we definitely can't have an even power. So we're between A and C. Okay, let's narrow it down further. At x equals 0, I'm bouncing off. So I know the power has to be
2.
an even number, 2, 4, whatever's available. And yep, A is the answer. This guy violates that rule. That's how you'll work backwards given the graph. Okay, how are we feeling so far? Ashley, Leslie, how are you guys doing?
Good.
We're halfway through. Number 5. Okay, these are literally, I screenshotted your test. So you might actually have the same question. I don't know. But if you can answer these, you can answer anything. So number 5, we haven't done one like this yet. It says, consider this polynomial. Go ahead and copy this down. And it's asking, what is the end behavior of h? The end behavior. So when it comes to end behavior, we really don't care about what the graph actually looks like in the middle or at the intercepts. We just want to know what's happening for very large values of x. So I'm going to go like this, and I only want to know what's happening as x approaches positive infinity and as x approaches negative infinity on the left side. So as a reminder, for end behavior, since x is going to be super large values, when I take a really big value of x to the 6th power, it overwhelms. It's going to grow much faster than x to the 3rd or x to the 5th. So you can, for end behavior, cross out all of the lower powers of x. So write down in your notes, focus on the leading term only. So we're focusing on the guy with the highest power, x to the 6th. Now, we talked about this a little bit in class. If I have an even power, both ends are going to open in the same direction or opposite directions. If I have an even power, think of like x squared as an example. How does x squared open? Do the ends go in the same direction or opposite direction? Well, we know x squared is not a line, a parabola. And both ends are going to open in the same direction. That's something that you should remember. If you have an even power, then the ends of the graph will either both open up or they will both open down. Who can tell me which way our graph is opening, both up or both down? And how do you know? Who can put it together? Don't be scared. Take a guess. You probably know the answer. Giselle?
Wouldn't they both go up because the x is positive and then the exponent is even?
Very good. It's a positive in front. So we know the right side is going up for sure. We've always known that. And now that we know it's even, we know the other side's going to go in the same direction. So let's answer the question. Which of these works? So as x approaches positive infinity, so we're focused on the right side, our graph is going to positive infinity. It's going up. If it was going down, we would say y approaches negative infinity, but we're going up. So we can cross out b because it says that the function's going down. We can also cross out c. You guys look between a and d, use the other arrow to narrow it down and type your answer in the chat. So as x approaches negative infinity, so meaning we're on the left, how is our function approaching? How is h of x, the height of the graph, where is it going? Positive infinity or negative infinity? For very, very negative values of x, isn't our graph just going higher and higher towards positive infinity? So our answer is A. So if I were to break this down, this part means the left, sorry, x approaches positive infinity means on the right side. X is very, very large. Our graph is going up. And this means as x approaches negative infinity, so x negative infinity, that's on the left arrow, this is saying the graph is also going up on both sides. Was that number 5? Okay, this is number 6. I want to give you 1 minute to try this one yourself. I'm going to pause, take a minute, copy down the problem, and try it yourself. First step.
First step. I'm not sure, to be honest.
So if they say find the zeros, what are they asking us for?
The x.
X-intercepts. How do we find x-intercepts?
Don't we
I'll remind you, and then you have to tell me the next step, okay?
all right.
We set the whole function equal to 0. So this is what we've been doing every step first. We set the whole thing equal to 0, just like that. Right? Because then don't we get the answers by flipping these? We can't do that unless it's equal to 0. So Anthony, you're not off the hook yet. What's our first intercept?
-2.
And why are we getting stuck here? What do I have to do before I can tell you the rest of the intercepts?
Do the what is it called? The magic X, I think.
That's right. We got to use magic X, and I have 1, 2, 3 terms. I'm also going to check if we can GCF. I have a 2, a 3, a 9. Nothing can factor out. So let's do magic X. Okay, we're going to set it up on the side. We need 2 numbers. Leslie, guide me. That multiply to what? And watch your signs. That multiply to
3, right?
stuck? No. That's the guy we add to. So we're gonna add to the middle number at the bottom. Wait, +3, not -3. But we're gonna multiply. Usually you multiply to the last number, but when there's a number in front, you need to multiply them together. So we need to multiply to -18. So if it helps you to remember, I like to draw an arc and put an M at the top. That means I need to multiply to -18, and then I add to the middle number. And Leslie, what are those numbers going to be? I think that's it.
3 and 6.
And the signs?
-3.
-3, and that's going to multiply to a negative and add to +3. We're good to go. Who can tell me what I need to be very careful at right at this stage?
You have
Very-
to divide both numbers by 2, don't you?
Thank you. Who was that, Ashley? Yeah,
Yeah.
take the 2 in front, divide both numbers by the 2. Notice 6 divided by 2 becomes 3. So cross it out right as 3. -3 halves stays a fraction, so we're going to add an x at the bottom and then read it bottom to top. So my factored polynomial, write down p of x, is really x plus 2, and then from that 3, I get an x plus 3, and then we're reading bottom to top, so it says 2x at the bottom, top says -3, just like that. Now we can set it equal to 0 one more time. And Giselle, what are our zeros?
-2, -3, and then 3/2.
Nice, and we're gonna plot them and we'll get that question correct. Not so bad, 3/2. So really, it's what we've been doing for the last couple weeks. Just a chance for you to show what you know. Let's go to our last problems. Okay, we've already done a problem like this, so I'm gonna just shut my mouth and you will tell me how to do the problem. Okay, I'm just gonna ask you for some steps. Let me erase this, it's unnecessary. Okay. So what's this question asking us for? Feel free to come off of mute so we can go faster. Read the question, what's it asking us for?
If it's gonna end up being a positive or negative.
At the ends, right? So right there, I know I don't have to graph this, which is good news because if I had to graph it, I'd have to factor that. And guess what? We don't know how to factor when we have 5 terms. That exceeds our capabilities. We can do 4 with grouping, but 5 is a bit much. Unless we could GCF, which we can't, so we're done. Okay, so we can't even factor it if we wanted to. But good news, we only need to know the end behavior. Ooh, what's the only term I need to focus on for end behavior?
The last one.
The last one or the first one? Or let me ask you this, the one with the highest power or the one with the lowest power?
One with the highest power.
The highest power, so we're gonna, we call it our leading term. It's gonna be 3x to the 4. And Giselle, what do you remember about even powers? How do the ends open? Together or opposite?
Together.
Together? And everybody, are these going together up or going together down?
Up.
So pick your answer, A, B, C, or D. Let's hear from Miss Ashley. So take your time. Let me know if you are getting stuck, but otherwise I want to hear your thought process, your answer. We know that these are going to be opening together up.
Shouldn't it be B then?
Sorry, what'd you say? D,
B.
as in boy?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. B as in boy says, as x approaches positive infinity. So you tell me, is that right or left?
Right.
Okay, that's on the right. So on the right side, it's saying q of x, which is our function, goes to negative infinity. That would be like this. We can eliminate that, right? It's saying as x on the right side, we're going down. You know, that's not right. So we're going to cross out B. Let's try again. Which one matches? They're both sides. So just to clarify, x approaches positive infinity and x approaches negative infinity will always be there to say right and left. It's what the q of x does that should match the direction of the arrows. So what's our answer?
Wouldn't it be A, miss?
Why?
Never mind, my bad. D.
I think it's D.
D as in dog.
Okay, let's look at D. Tell me why D. Okay, so as x approaches positive infinity, meaning we're on the right arrow, it's going to positive infinity. Is that true? Is our right arrow going up?
Yes.
Okay, let's do the left side. As x approaches negative infinity, so we're talking about really, really negative values of x, what does this say the graph is going?
Negative.
Down. Is that right? You have to be very careful when you read this. So that's
Okay,
actually
A.
wrong. The answer is A. The answer here is A. Okay, so some of you are like, what the hell? There's so many infinities. What do I focus on? Here's what you can ignore. You don't need to look at that sign, really. And you don't really need to look at this one. You just need to know that this is the right arrow and this is the left arrow. Since you know both of them are going up, you're looking for the graph to be positive on both the right and the left. And this guy's positive on both sides. That's how we make our decision. Okay, let's go. Any questions here before I move on? That was a little bit of a struggle. Does it make sense now that we've talked about it? And if not, feel free to throw a tomato at me or whatever you need to do. Leave me 2 stars on Yelp. Ashley, are you good?
Yeah.
All right, last. Okay, actually, no, second to last. So see if you can do this on your own, because this was just like the first problem that we did today. So they're telling me I have a function. They've already factored it for me. They're even telling me the zeros, and you can verify x equals 6 comes from here. I would recommend writing this down, like if you're taking the test, and putting the zeros on top of their factors, just to verify x equals 2/7, and then x equals -5 right there. So they've done all the hard work. The question is, what is the sign of f on the interval from -5 to 2/7? If you remember how we did the first problem and it stuck with you, what should we do in this problem so we can answer the question?
Shouldn't we plot all the zeros?
Yeah, we should graph the graph and then just look between these numbers to see how the graph is behaving. That's it. Good memory. Okay, go ahead and do it. Look down. I'm not going to graph it. I'm asking you to do this problem yourself. Another minute. Sorry, I paused the video. I'm just going to go up really fast. So guys, ultimately we graphed our polynomial, and we cut at every single point. Between -5 and 2/7, the graph is below the axis. So we said it was always negative. Okay, coming back. Last problem of the day. Okay, let's all unmute ourselves and get out of here in the next 30 seconds. Ready? Unmute Anthony. Unmute Leslie, Ashley, Giselle, and stay unmuted. Yes, okay, you remuted yourself. Leslie, can you unmute Ashley? Okay, let's do this. So first, what should we check?
What points the polynomial passes through?
Yeah, so our x-intercepts, we have x-intercepts at -3, -1, and it looks like 1/2. What should we do next?
Determine what power they're given.
The powers. So the x plus 3 factor should have a what power?
A 1.
A 1 or a 3 or a 5, but it has to be odd, right? X plus 3. So what should we get rid of?
C and A.
C, A, they give me even powers. Okay, we're between B and D. Let's look at -1. So the factor would be x plus 1, and the power should be what?
To the second.
Even to a second power. So our answer?
Is D.
Ta-da! So fast, so good. Thanks, Ashley. Okay, guys, that was the whole test. I hope you feel more confident now, and I hope you go and get your 100, because it's going to be worth like 2 homework assignments. So it's really going to help if you are like on the edge or you're trying to raise your grade. Stick around if you have more questions. Otherwise, you're free to go as long as you took attendance. And thanks for being here. I love you guys.
Thank you, Miss.
Bye, Giselle.
Thank you, Miss.
Bye. Thanks, Ashley.
Miss, can I get the attendance link?
Yeah, let me grab it for you. Tell me if this one works. Okay. And the password is early advisory.